All right. Welcome to episode 51 of the Don't Be Ridiculous podcast. Jeremy and Clark Palmer here with you. As
Miami
always,
Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins. No. For people who don't know, that's the Miami Dolphins old fight song that they'll play in the stadium sometimes when they score. So, yeah, it's just...
Welcome to Homer Radio.
That's right, yeah. Yeah. We're going to totally change our tune. We're all in on the Dolphins now.
So, obviously had a emotional, amazing, exhausting win by the Dolphins. But before we do that, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and thanks for listening. So first of all, man, that was a crazy Dolphins game. Dolphins get, just recap for anyone who didn't see it. Dolphins get way behind. They're down 28-7, I think, at one point, and then they're down 35-14 going into the fourth quarter. And the Dolphins score 4 unanswered touchdowns to win the game. They score the last touchdown with about 14 seconds left.
Yeah,
and it was one of those things. It looked like it was over. It looked like it had gone too far one way, and Tua had thrown 2 interceptions. Tua Tagovailoa had thrown 2 interceptions, and it looked like the Dolphins were in big trouble. The Ravens got a kick return for a touchdown. They had a pass reception where the guy ran about 70 yards for a touchdown, and then Lamar Jackson had a 79-yard run for a touchdown. Everything that could go wrong when you play the Ravens, everything that you try to stop from happening was happening.
Yeah. Well, by the way, just real quick. Lamar Jackson, we were talking about this during the game. Lamar Jackson is bulked up. He's definitely bigger. And I remember, some different people, like I remember Shannon Sharp talking about, like, he put on all this muscle, and he's like, is that going to slow him down? I think it did slow him down. I don't know. I'm watching Lamar Jackson. I'm like, he does appear a tick slower. He's still really fast, but he definitely does appear a little bit slower. So that is kind of an interesting thing to watch, but it didn't really matter. He was really good just, throughout the whole game, except for the second half. They weren't really able to do much. But anyway, yeah, the Dolphins, like you said, they were kind of out of it. The first half, it was weird because the Dolphins, I felt like, moved the ball pretty well, and the offensive line was good in the first half, and they ran the ball a little bit, but, Tua had some mistakes, and their defense was kind of struggling to stop the Ravens. They had like a 10-minute drive at one point, which I guess ended up with them not getting any points because there was a 4th down stop where where Lamar Jackson in the center fumbled the snap, and so they didn't convert that into a touchdown. But yeah, the first half was just bad, and it was kind of like, I guess this is over.
Yeah, the defense couldn't. They made a nice goal line stand there in the first quarter or second quarter, and and then it just looked like they couldn't do anything to stop them.
And the Dolphins don't, comeback wins for the Dolphins, especially down 3 scores, is just not. That's not something we've been used to in the, I don't know what you want to say, the post Dan Marino era.
Right.
So yeah, I was kind of thinking it was over, but then Tua was awesome. I mean, look, we've been really hypercritical of Tua, and I'm not going to totally do a 180 and change like my complete opinion of Tua based on one game, but that was awesome. Okay. More of that, please. Okay. If you do more of that, then I'm amenable to changing my opinion. Okay. But overall, like I said, he made those mistakes in the first half, but I thought, his accuracy was, for the most part, his accuracy was what you would expect. And he made plays. And for the second half, I thought he made pretty good decisions with the ball. He made some plays downfield, and then just not even just the downfield stuff. He was on the money on the shorter throws, and he did some intermediate stuff. So yeah, and Mike McDaniel, I think he's a pretty good play caller, and he's a pretty good play designer. So I think maybe they got themselves a good coach. It's only 2 games. We've got to slow down, but yeah, it was. I mean, everyone's talking about Tyreek Hill, but Jalen Waddle is unbelievable. The Dolphins hit it out of the park with that draft pick last year. I mean, he is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's something I wrote down in my notes that the Waddle Hill combination is lethal. That you can't cover him. Nobody can cover him 1-on-1, and so you've got to kind of set up your team. But it's really hard when you have both of them out there.
Yeah, and then that's the thing that McDaniel was capitalizing on. That you use Tyreek Hill as a decoy sometimes, and then Jalen Waddle's wide open. And I mean the Ravens. I don't know what their secondary was doing on some of those plays, but credit to the Dolphins, they made plays.
Yeah, no, it's sometimes that's the hardest thing to do is to hit the catch the ball when you're wide open and there's no one anywhere near you. They made Tua made two big throws down the field for touchdowns. The first one to Hill I thought was really schemed up well by the play call. And they basically got Tyreek Hill wide open. But it's just it's bizarre because Tyreek Hill is so darn fast that he's always standing there waiting for the ball.
Yeah, so it's like, is Tua underthrowing him or is Tyreek Hill just too fast? Like,
Yeah, and I don't blame the quarterback. I think Hill is that good.
Yeah. Well, and look, I just want to be clear because again, if anybody who's listened to this podcast, we've been hypercritical of Tua. And I'm not sure. I don't think he's an elite quarterback. But if he's going to play like that, then again, my opinion, because that's what I've been talking about. He was the number 5 pick in the draft. That's what I want to see from the number 5 pick in the draft. Okay, not every game, but I'm just saying I need at different times during the season. You need performances like that to lift your team up. So that was that all credit to him. That was awesome.
Yeah, and I mean it's like we said, we were talking when we were talking about this. I think we were when we were texting during the game. It's kind of like don't force it, like just make the throws that are there. And anytime he did that, it usually worked out just fine because the coaching they're calling the right stuff. They've got them in the right situations, and the interceptions were he tried to force a ball in to Tyreek Hill that was late. And again, ended up getting tipped and intercepted. And then he tried to force the ball down the field, into an area where it's really hard to do unless you've got a rocket arm. And even then, it's not an advisable throw to make.
But I will say this in comparison to last week, I thought because the offensive line was good pretty much the whole game, but there were some different points when he got rushed. I thought overall he was better in those situations. I'm not saying you always have to make some big play when you got a defensive lineman or somebody rushing on you, but he protected the ball. I think there were times where he just took a sack or he would get rid of the ball, and it wouldn't be in a bad situation where he's just kind of throwing it up into traffic or something. So overall, that was better. It's like that's what you need to do. So I'm kind of shocked. And again, we were talking about this too, like. When was the last time we were this excited watching a Miami Dolphins game? And we were trying to, I was trying to think back. There was a Monday night game in 2009 or 10 where Chad Henne was playing the Jets, and there were a bunch of lead changes, and they ended up winning the game at the end. There was the Wildcat game in 2008, I think, when the Dolphins did that Wildcat formation, and Ronnie Brown ran the ball down the Patriots' throats and they blew them out. Those are kind of two games that kind of came to mind, but that just gives you an idea of how Miami Dolphins fans have been kind of waiting for an exciting team.
Yeah. That the Wildcat game was the best. I think that was the best example. That was so much fun to just beat the snot out of the Patriots.
And the Patriots remember they had gone undefeated the season before. And then they had won their first 2 games the next year. That was the year Brady got hurt in the first game.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. I think the Tua takes are going to be rampant. As we said before the season started, every week is going to be a referendum. Last week, it was just, Tua this, not that great, blah, blah, blah. This week, you're not going to be able to get a word in edgewise with the Tua lovers. It is going to be, he's fantastic. Everybody needs to start paying attention.
In fairness, I'll let you guys have it this week, okay? I'll let you, because that was by far the best game of Tua's career, and it was awesome, okay? By the way, that's a great game for any great quarterback. That was awesome. Okay. Yeah. All the credit in the world, and you know what? You got enjoy it this week. Okay. I'm not gonna. I'll save my concerns and all that stuff for another time. You guys just enjoy it this week, okay?
Yeah, to your point, I mean, no, am I, drastically changing my opinion on Tua? No, not really. But what I will say is he's being put in the right situation.
Yes, finally, he definitely is.
This offense suits what he does perfectly, and you could see in this game, it all comes full circle, right? They throw all of these short passes, they make the defense come up, and then when you're not, all of a sudden, Tyreek Hill's by you, and he's throwing a bomb for a touchdown. Like, I see what I kind of figured that's kind of what this offense is designed to do, and now you get to see in this game, okay, this is what it can look like.
The other thing that we need to see is they ran the ball efficiently when they did run it in this game, but obviously they couldn't run it as much because they were so far behind. So I'd like to see them in a game that's closer where they can run the ball more and how that can kind of impact their passing game and help them open up more things down the field.
Yeah, Raheem Mostert had 11 carries for 51 yards, and Chase Edmonds had 5 carries for 33 yards. So they averaged about 5 yards a carry.
Yeah.
So that's pretty darn good.
Again, that's something that hopefully we'll see more of, as the season goes on. And the other thing is that you got to consider is we were nervous they were going to go 1-3 over the first 4 games. That's not going to happen anymore. The worst that could happen is they go 2-2. So now for the people who were saying they were going to make the playoffs, it looks a lot better for you because now they got the Bills and the Bengals, and we're watching the Bengals now, and their offensive line is not good. So if you're as a Dolphins fan, you're thinking, all right, well, if we can,
Yeah, so let's grab onto that. So the offensive line, it's something we were concerned about during the season. Last week, we were really worried. It did not look good at all. So Austin Jackson is out for 4 games. And so, but Greg Little and Teron Armstead were able to play, even though they were listed as questionable. And it was significantly better this week than last week.
He had so much time to throw. He had such a clean pocket, so many of his throws. And again, the times where he didn't, I thought he was fine. He protected the ball or got rid of it. And because last week there were some plays where it's like, dude, what the hell are you doing? But he was good. And he had that touchdown pass where he did that spin move. Because Justin Houston was bearing down on him. He went one way, faked the other way, spun around, and threw a touchdown pass. Like, more of that, please. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
And then he had the play where he was going out to the right. He drops back, and there was immediately a guy in his face, so he took off to the right, got around him. I don't know what happened. I forget what happened on that play, but he turned a negative into a positive. And even when the protection wasn't perfect, it was one defender, and he was able to just kind of move one way or the other to get the throw off.
Yeah.
So it felt like after the second interception, he kind of settled down a little bit and, stopped forcing the ball, and he looked comfortable this week versus last week. I don't think he really looked comfortable most of the game. This week he kind of did. Yeah. So I think that speaks to, hopefully they corrected whatever offensive line mistakes because they were able to run the ball, and they had that really nice run play on the last drive where he ran it about 20 or 30 yards, which got him down inside the 10.
Yeah.
So this is, if everything's going to work like that, this is exactly what they need. The defense struggled a little bit earlier in the game, but they really locked in the second half.
Well, and the other thing is that I'm starting to when I think about teams playing defense at this point, in 2022 in the NFL, I'm kind of like, can you get stops when you need to? I don't need you to completely shut down the other team, right. But they were able to get stops when they needed to. So that's kind of what you want.
Yeah, and you see the Ravens' 2 speed receivers gave them a hard time. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes when they're playing the Buffalo
next week, yeah. So
the teams with really fast wide receivers, because Xavier Howard, got torched on a couple of plays, but then he almost had a pick 6 at the end of the game. So you can see that they need Byron Jones. They need both corners to be able to play to be at their best. The Tua throwing the deep ball. I thought, listen, it's like shooting in the NBA, right? I don't care how your shot looks if it goes in. You know what I mean? So, no. Is Tua's deep ball the prettiest thing ever? No. But so what? Neither was Eli Manning's. Neither was a bunch of people don't throw a pretty deep ball. But you know what? He got it to the receivers. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. Like, I don't need to see that 5 or 6 times a game. But, can you give me 2 or 3 times a game? 3 or 4 times a game? When it opens up. Like, don't force it. But when it opens up. Because with Tua, I'm nervous about getting enough plays to make up for mistakes, so I don't really want him to force it. But, we do need some stuff and even just the intermediate stuff. I was really impressed with the intermediate stuff where there's like zone coverage and he's fitting it in. Those were big plays that they needed. So that's really impressive to me. So.
Yeah, you can see with the Mike McDaniel offense, it makes the defense have to cover the whole field, vertically and horizontally. So that's one thing I think he does really well. Like even it's a whole bunch, and it's so much misdirection. There's a back in front. There's a tight end going this way. He looks to the right, then throws to a guy in the flat on the left. So it just the defense is like where is it? I don't know where you're. So I think it's creative. It challenges defenses to the point where things like that, like Tyreek Hill running wide open up for you.
Yeah.
The Baltimore offense was a little concerning in the second half. It felt like, maybe, now the Dolphins defense is pretty good. Maybe, they were just doing a pretty good job of stopping them from running. And then it does what you go to the same place with Lamar Jackson that you always do. Like, can this guy make enough plays throwing the ball? In the first half, and by the way, for the first 3 quarters, he did. So it's just kind of confusing how they were able to,
Well, really... kind of the same thing happened last week, I guess. They kind of got up big on the Jets, and then it was kind of they didn't do much. So I don't know. They still play. They still played really well. They scored 38 points and lost. So it's kind of like
Right. So all in all, like we'll see how the Dolphins do. And I'm not one of these people who goes crazy with expectations. I'm not like you have to beat Buffalo. Buffalo has been kicking our ass. So if the Dolphins are just competitive with Buffalo, I'll be happy with that.
I'm concerned about the pass rush, especially Von Miller. So I think to me that's kind of I don't care if they, to be honest, I don't care if they win the game against the Bills. Like you said, be competitive and let's see how the offensive line does and let's see how, if Tua's getting some pressure, can he deal with that and not make it worse by fumbling the ball or throwing bad interceptions or something. Let's see what.
Yeah. So all in all, listen, great Dolphins win. Like, do we want to be wrong about Tua? Yes, we would like to be wrong.
I would love to be wrong because, if we can finally get a quarterback who we can, especially when we have talent around him, we can get a quarterback who can play well. Like, I'll take it. I'll take it because, we could say draft another quarterback, but you don't know how that's going to work out. We were talking about yesterday, we were talking about Justin Herbert, and like, if you watch footage of Justin Herbert in college, you're like, wow, he looks kind of different in the NFL. He's more accurate. And like, so it's still kind of a crapshoot coming out of the draft. So.
Yeah. I think it just comes down to, are you going to get better from college to the NFL? That's the thing that NFL teams don't know. Are you going to get better and improve upon some of these things because the NFL is just a lot more difficult. Yeah. You can tell by watching the games, college and pro, that it's different. It's an entirely different game.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. So on to, as Bill Belichick would say, on to Buffalo.
On to Buffalo. That's right.
Let's see. Let's go through some thoughts on some of the other NFL games today. It's about 6:30 East Coast time. So we're in the second half of most of the 4 o'clock games.
Yeah, we're watching Joe Burrow run for his life against the Dallas Cowboys pass rush.
Which, you can tell the Cowboys heard everybody saying they're done after Dak Prescott's injury last week, and they came to play this week.
Yeah.
So I'm going to call it the average QB bowl is what we had going on today. There were 3 different games where you're just going, oh, geez, really? Joe Flacco versus Jacoby Brissett, Mac Jones versus Mitch Trubisky, Baker Mayfield versus Daniel Jones. I mean, it's like, and I saw a tweet from Colin Cowherd. He's like, listen, you take Mahomes, Allen, and Mahomes, Allen, and Rodgers out of your day, boy, the NFL quarterbacking is really average. It gets average fast. So yeah, and like I think this is one of the most fun parts about watching the NFL is I know half the teams in the NFL are going to self-destruct in some way or the other because it's just the way it is. Week to week, the NFL is a shit show. It's just who knows what's going to happen. You can't predict it. I don't know why people bother gambling on it. I have so much fun laughing at people who try to bet on these games like they know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
it's absolute insanity. But it was quite entertaining. So Baker Mayfield is running and pumping his fist after everything he does. So, that was interesting. And the Giants managed to win. They got a field goal at the end to win. And then Mac Jones versus Mitch Trubisky, it's both guys who, they throw pop flies basically, to anything over 20 yards. It's like, well, let's hope the receiver comes down with it. It's just I feel bad. It's like, God, the Steelers are stuck with this. Like, this is what they have to deal with. Oh,
well, they could play Kenny Pickett, but I guess they're just deciding to,
Yeah, I don't know that he would be any better, but it's just like, man, I cannot believe this is the situation that the Steelers are in. And the Joe Flacco versus Jacoby Brissett game ended up being really exciting.
Yeah, Joe Flacco, nice job. He threw that touchdown to end the game. Nice.
Yeah, the Browns, you're watching, this season, like, until Deshaun Watson comes back, it's like, all right, how many wins can the Browns get, to put themselves in good position? And they should have had one today. They let it get away. This was really bad by Cleveland. They allow just a wide-open touchdown to get within a score, and then they lose an onside kick.
Yeah.
Just awful job by the Browns. There's no excuse for losing that game. So, but that was quite entertaining. So are the Indianapolis Colts just bad?
They're notoriously slow starters.
Because they got their ass kicked by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Open up a can of whoop ass kick.
Are the Jacksonville Jaguars good?
Yeah.
Are they good, or is it just that Urban Meyer is a terrible NFL coach and Doug Peterson's just competent and they're just 10 times better because of that?
And that's really all they needed was a competent coach because they have so much talent because they've been drafting so high for so long. They have a lot of good players, and you watch that game and you're just like, how is Indianapolis on the field with Jacksonville? Like, they don't even deserve to be there. It was a shutout.
Yeah.
You watch that game, you're just going, one team is clearly better. And so, if the Titans lose to the Bills, like I was saying to you earlier, I think Jacksonville can win that division. They've got to be the best team in the division. If you watch the games, it's clear.
Yeah. So I would say this. I think that division's kind of up for grabs because I don't really believe in any of those teams. So, you know what? It's like, could the Jaguars win it? Why the hell not? What's the Texans' record? They had they tie the Colts?
They tied last week, and they're playing Denver right now.
What is the score in that game? Because it didn't look like Denver was.
They
doing
were
all that.
winning. I think it's 9-6 in the third quarter. Denver does not look good. I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, so the next thing, I'm going to update this every week. I've decided. Okay, the Carson Wentz experience.
Yes.
Carson Wentz is one of those guys. He's just good enough to make you think he's really good, but he's just bad enough to keep you interested. So he pulled off a great comeback last week against Jacksonville. They get behind against Detroit. He tries to pull it off again. Couldn't quite get there. He was 30 for 46, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And, the thing is, Carson Wentz, he'll get himself into situations because he has a strong arm and he believes in himself that he just shouldn't be getting into. Like, it's like we're talking about Tua. It's like, no, don't try to do that. But Carson Wentz can actually sometimes get, he has a big enough arm and he's good enough athlete to sometimes get away with it. So he tries it all the time.
Yeah.
And so I find, Carson Wentz to me is the new Jay Cutler. Like, he's just one of these guys. Now, the difference is Jay Cutler was just pretty much unhappy the entire time.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz actually gets excited when he does something well.
Well, it reminds me of remember the skit on Chappelle's show when keeping it real goes wrong? Yeah. Like,
yes.
It's just like, you're like, no, man, I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to fire this down the field. And it's intercepted. Shit.
That's good. That's good. I like that. We should call it keeping it Wentz or something. Like,
I like that.
Something.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just
I like that. When keeping it Carson goes wrong, like he's he's entertainment. I mean, you got to say, listen, the NFL is nothing but not an entertainment television show, and he is something else. So every week I'm gonna update on this because the guy's just too good to pass up. It's must see TV because it's good or bad. Something is going to happen with this guy.
Yeah.
And the Redskins, the Commanders are just good enough to be in every game, but probably not win.
Yeah.
So, the other thing was, unfortunately, Trey Lance got injured. It looked like to me like he broke a leg or broke an ankle because it looked like his foot was going the wrong way. When he got tackled, he got rolled up on and they carted him off. And so Jimmy Garoppolo is back. And by the way, immediately Jimmy Garoppolo comes in, touchdown. They're up 20-7 right now on Seattle. And, it's like the whole debate, the whole offseason, like, listen, I hope Trey Lance gets better. Like,
I don't wish injury on anybody.
I think he should get a shot, whatever. Things happen in football, right? There's nothing you can do. It wasn't a bad play on his part. It's something that happened. And, so the whole debate, the whole offseason was, well, how can you got to trade Jimmy G? You can't keep Jimmy G if you're going to start Trey Lance. And my argument the whole time was very simple. I would keep Jimmy G, and I would consider starting him this year because Trey Lance is a project. He's not ready. He didn't start that many college games. You're kind of crossing your fingers, hoping, he figures it out quickly, but he's not. He's probably not going to. Like, and especially on a team like San Francisco where you want to win. Like, they have a team that can win. They can compete for the Super Bowl. You can't, So So this will be really interesting. Now Jimmy Garoppolo has restructured his contract, but he can get bonuses if he plays a certain number of games. So now it's like, oh, it's perfect, So now it's like,
I was just laughing at the situation because it's like, we got to trade him. Everybody's saying they got to trade him. They got to trade him. They got to trade him. And then like they're kind of making it clear that they're going to trade him, or they're at least trying to lead you to believe they'll trade him. And and then he's practicing off to the side. He's not even practicing with the team because it's like they're sort of keeping their distance.
Right.
And they're trying to pump up Trey Lance and everybody's behind him. We all believe in Trey Lance and all this stuff, and then they don't trade Jimmy Garoppolo. They restructure his deal. He'll be the backup quarterback. And then Trey Lance comes out in the first game and doesn't look all that great. And then he gets injured, and then Jimmy Garoppolo comes in, and Jimmy Garoppolo looks good, and their offense is moving the ball. And it's just like the whole offseason we were like, what do you think's going to happen if Trey Lance plays badly and they're losing, and then they still have Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster? They're going to be like, why don't we put Jimmy Garoppolo in? And now it's like he could go in there, they could win a few games, and it's going to be like, well, what the hell are we doing?
I mean, my opinion was I thought by week 5 or week 6 Garoppolo would be in there. And I think there were a lot of people that felt the same way, but it's just kind of like, it's unfortunate or fortunate, whatever. It's a circumstance that happened. And, overall football wise for this season, I think it's going to be good for the 49ers and good for Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, he can leave as a free agent, after this year. I thought it was really smart what both sides did here, where Garoppolo said, you know what? Okay, I'll take a reduction in my salary, put some incentives in there, but I want a no trade clause. So you can't just trade me wherever the hell you want. And then, I get to be a free agent at the end of the year. So to me, it's best of both worlds. Like they get Garoppolo to help them win while they have this team together, and then they can see what they want to do at the end of the season. But it puts Garoppolo in a position to make a nice new contract on a new team at the end of the year.
Yeah. So we'll see.
I'm happy for him. The other thing, last thing from the 1:00 games, Tom Brady finally beats the Saints, which, that game was 3-3 when the fourth quarter started. Like that was a tough watch. Both teams really struggling. But I will say, both teams have good defenses. The Saints defense and the Bucs defense are really good. So I can understand it to a point. But I think this is one of the things with Brady. I think that, it is a little bit of a limitation that he has no athleticism, that you're worried about. Like the defense doesn't have to worry about where he's going to go. They know exactly where he's going to be. And it's like, I want to see. Now, I don't think there's a whole lot of defenses that can do this, but it's, all right, let's keep Tom Brady in the pocket. We'll keep everybody in coverage, and we'll just rush him. And I think, that's kind of the book now on what you do. And it's like every pass, from what I saw, every pass he threw, the Saints defender was right on top of the receiver. So it's just going to be a challenge. I just don't know there's that many teams where they can do that. I also think the injuries for the offensive line for the Bucs is an issue.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem too. But, so that was, that was all I had as far as the NFL goes. As far as the 4:00 games go right now, the Broncos, I'm kind of surprised. They've got 6 points, and we're almost into the fourth quarter. I don't know what the deal is with their offense. It kind of stinks. The Arizona Cardinals might just be bad because there's 2 games now.
Bengals are trying to come back now. They just got a fumble, and they're inside the 25 of the Cowboys. So they're down 17-9. So even though Burrow's getting the shit kicked out of him, he's still, which again is why Joe Burrow was awesome, because he's still keeping him in the game.
Yeah, something's got to be done about their. They've got to protect better. He's got to get rid of the ball better. Like they have to do something because it's not really sustainable. They're lucky that they're playing against Cooper Rush, But yeah, and then tonight I'm interested. Packers and the Bears. It's basically the Aaron Rodgers redemption game. Every time Aaron Rodgers loses a game, every time everybody says he sucks, and then he goes out and wins.
The Bears and kicks their ass, and
Yeah, because he owns them. So anyway, any other NFL thoughts?
I'm trying to think if there was anything. No. Did you want to? It was kind of old news, but did you want to talk about the Monday night thing with the field goal?
Oh yes. So the Denver.
Do you guys remember the Monday night game with the Broncos and the Seahawks? It was Russell Wilson's return to Seattle after being traded, and they're behind 17-16, and they're driving with under a minute to go, and they run off 30 seconds of the clock, and they call timeout with 20 seconds left, and then they decide to kick a 64-yard field goal. And the coach for the Broncos says that that was the plan. We just get to the 46-yard line, and then the kicker will kick the field goal. And to that I say, plan A was to kick a 64-yard field goal. You must be new to this, bro. And he is, because Nathaniel Hackett's never been a head coach before. So,
it's I think some of these coaches, they get way too into this stuff instead of just using their brain, just thinking what's the simplest explanation here. It's 4th and 5. Like, what chance would I rather take? Have my quarterback, Russell Wilson, who's now making $250 million, to try to get a 4th and 5 or kick the longest field goal in the history of the NFL. Like I don't even know what to say anymore. It's like, what are you doing? It's one of those things where I feel like, good coaches really make a big difference, but bad coaches can completely torpedo you. Yeah. And, that's an example of, they better get that sorted out. As far as the game goes, Seattle played like their life depended on it. And the Broncos just sucked in the red zone. They just couldn't get the ball into the end zone. They fumbled on the goal line. They did a lot of crap that was stupid. So
they still can't get the ball into the end zone today.
Right. Yeah. So I'm a little worried about what's going on with the Broncos. This is not I did not expect them to light the world on fire, but if you can't beat Seattle and Houston, that's not great. That's not instilling confidence.
Yeah, that's not good. And then, well, I guess just from Thursday night, the Chiefs played the Chargers, and I think I was telling you this. I kind of feel like the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes are kind of like, oh yeah, you guys want to praise all these other quarterbacks? Okay, fine. You think we're not going to be the same without Tyreek Hill? No, we'll be fine. I think Patrick Mahomes probably has the early lead in the MVP race. Him or Josh. Unless you want to throw Tua in there. I mean, he did throw 6 touchdowns today.
Why not? Why not? Let's get our money down now. I think I mean, listen, Andy Reid, really smart, great coach. Patrick Mahomes, really smart, really talented quarterback. Really smart, really talented people usually figure it out.
Yeah.
So I was not one of these people that was worried about the Chiefs going into this season. I was also like, I like the Broncos, but let's pump the brakes on them winning the division. Okay. Kansas City is still, first class as far as everything goes. So the other teams have some issues. You can see it. Denver's got some issues. The Los Angeles Chargers have some issues.
The Chargers issue seems to be, I don't know if you want to call it a curse or something. It just feels like if you're a Chargers fan, it's like you got to be watching games feeling like something bad's going to happen. Like someone's going to throw a bad interception. You're going to fumble the ball. You're going to have a big lead and you're going to give it up.
And it speaks to it, right? Mahomes threw a ball right to one of the Chargers in the middle of the field, and they called. He tried to catch it, ended up hitting the ground, didn't count as interception. Then he throws one in the end zone where Asante Samuel Jr. has a pick six and isn't able to come up with it. If he catches that ball, he's gone. And that was the difference in the game. So it's just kind of like, God, if you're a Chargers fan, it must be so painful to be like, oh, geez, really? Like this one play, like it's not even like stuff that's necessarily their fault. It's like this play just doesn't go their way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so and then of course the Chargers. I mean, you can find their bad luck. I mean, going back to that game against the Bengals in 1981 in the AFC Championship game where they go to Cincinnati and it's like 2,000 degrees below zero, wherever the fuck it was. Anyway.
Yeah, they have some rough playoff losses that that I'm sure still haunt them. But anyway, so let's talk about the college football from yesterday.
Yeah.
It was not last Saturday was absolutely insane. It was craziness. This weekend not quite as much, kind of came back down to earth, but there was some crazy stuff. Did you see the Appalachian State Hail Mary?
No, I did not see that.
Oh my goodness. So you got to pull this up. So week 1 Appalachian State plays North Carolina. They score 40 points in the fourth quarter and then they lose the game by 2 points. They try to get a 2-point conversion to tie the game, they fail. Last week they go to Texas A&M and beat them. They block a field goal at the end to win the game. This week they're losing to Troy State. They miss on a 4th down to get into the end zone. They get the ball back to just enough time to throw a Hail Mary, and it's one of the craziest plays ever. They throw it down there. It's short of the end zone. A guy tips it backwards, and somebody grabs it and runs it in. It was absolutely insanity. So that was the craziest finish of the day. Obviously, I'm not spending a whole lot of time watching Appalachian State versus Troy, but College Game Day was in Boone, North Carolina, which is where Appalachian State is.
Oh, here I pulled up I pulled it up on ESPN.com. I'm watching it. That's a 53. Wow, that's pretty insane. Troy is they're FBS, right? They're not FCS.
Yes, no, that's a Sun Belt.
Oh my God. So he tipped. They weren't even in the end zone. He tipped it and he ran around.
No. Yeah.
For people listening or watching, you got to look that up and watch it. That is amazing.
Yeah. It was definitely the craziest finish of the weekend, and the Atlanta Falcons just blocked a punt by the Rams and ran it in for a touchdown, so they're only down 7.
Oh wow!
with 5 minutes left, or 3:38 left. So yeah, that was definitely the most exciting finish. But I found this thing on if you have I think if you have an Xbox or there's another device where you get all the games on ESPN. They do a multicast, so you can put 4 games on your screen at one time, and you can pick the games, and it's any of the games that ESPN broadcasts, which is most of them. So I got familiar with that. That's pretty interesting. It's a little bit of a sensory overload. I'm not sure I'm really comfortable with it. But so I have a couple of takes about college football. So Notre Dame managed to beat Cal this week, so they're 1-2. And obviously the Notre Dame fans, the Rams just fumbled and the Falcons picked it up. They're down 6 with the ball. So the Rams could be 0-2 real quick here. Anyway, so yeah, Notre Dame loses to Cal. They beat Cal. They were a 12-point favorite, and they didn't cover the spread. So listen, this is my Notre Dame take. Look, I think Brian Kelly's the best coach in the history of Notre Dame, right? I'm 43 years old, right? In that time, Notre Dame has had 2 good coaches, Lou Holtz and Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay? Everybody else has been, and that's the thing. Everybody else has not been a dismal failure. They just haven't been up to the Notre Dame standard. Yeah. I put in quotes. Okay? So, Brian Kelly coached for 12 years. He was 113-41. That's a 73% winning percentage. It's like 154 games or something like that. And then the previous 13 years from the time, Lou Holtz left to the time they got Brian Kelly, all the other coaches were 91-66, which is 57%. And that's like 157 games. So it's about the same amount of games.
Right.
With the other coaches. So, look, I kind of think, I hate to say this, but I kind of think Notre Dame is going to kind of be like Nebraska. Like, I think Notre Dame does have a prestige advantage where people want to go, Notre Dame still has a cachet to, I'm going to Notre Dame, and Nebraska doesn't quite have that. So it's a little bit different. But I think, the Notre Dame expectations and the administration is spoiled to hell now because Brian Kelly won with lesser players, and he won, 9 or 10 games a year, made the playoffs twice, even though they're not in the class of any of those playoff teams that they got destroyed by. Okay? And they think that these coaches grow on trees. And, no big-time coach wants the Notre Dame job. Nobody does. Okay? Like, all of the coaches they hired since Lou Holtz left, it's Bob Davie, Charlie Weiss, Tyrone Willingham. Like, those were not big-time, we won at other programs and we're great, right. Whatever. Those were not big-time guys. Urban Meyer turned them down.
Well,
okay?
and Brian Kelly was coming up because
right.
he had been at Cincinnati and he'd been winning, and so he's trying to get – Cincinnati is, it's a Division I school, but it's not a big-time job. So, right. He's moving up, and it's like Notre Dame, and it's like, okay, that's a much bigger deal than Cincinnati. So he was coming up like that,
Yeah, so I think I think no big-time coaches are going to want the Notre Dame job, and unless you just happen to hit a home run, you're not going to get the type of guy. And the thing is, what I think is underrated about what Brian Kelly did is he figured out after a couple years, okay, the way we succeed as Notre Dame, I have to tailor my recruiting to what's going to work. I have to search out certain types of players to recruit to my program, right? So Notre Dame is really good at recruiting offensive linemen, tight ends, safeties, running backs. Okay? They can't get a 5-star quarterback, but they can get the solid, 4-year starter, leader that's your quarterback. That's not the most talented guy, but he's smart and he'll get the job done. Notre Dame is really good at recruiting those types of guys. What Brian Kelly also did was he was able to get those defensive linemen that the major programs are able to get, and he was able to get guys good enough to be drafted. But Notre Dame wasn't getting 4- and 5-star guys all the time. What he was really good at doing was getting 4 or 5 blue chip guys in every class, every team that he had, especially after the first couple years. There would be 4 or 5 guys who would be like, okay, this guy's good enough to make an NFL roster, along with these other, decent players that we can get at Notre Dame, and we can make this work. He squeezed literally the most out of it. Like, you couldn't get more out of what Brian Kelly got out of Notre Dame. So, does that mean that Marcus Freeman should be fired? No, because, I think you've got to give the guy 2 or 3 years to see what he can do. And the other thing is, Marcus Freeman's young. It's his first head coaching job. And I think that's where Notre Dame, I think that's the biggest thing where Notre Dame missed the boat. Notre Dame should not be your first job. You need to have had some significant experience, because Notre Dame is different. It's different. It's different than just about any other school. Okay? Your level of recruiting has to be low. Like, you got to win with lesser players, and you've got to win to the standard that everybody else has, that the best teams have. And that's really, really hard to do, as evidenced by nobody else has been able to do it.
Right.
So I think Notre Dame is I think they're delusional. Now, is it probably smart of Notre Dame to try to hire a younger coach and hope they hit a home run with it because they're not going to get any of these major names? Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true. But I would just hate to see, a couple of years and, they fire this guy, and they, you watch Notre Dame now, they have no players. They got no playmakers. I don't know whether that's because Brian Kelly did a crappy job recruiting last year, or because, just he ran out. The cupboard is just bare. I don't know what the reason is, but you watch him and it's obvious. So, yeah, that's my Notre Dame take. So what do you think?
I think that's kind of that makes sense. I mean, I guess maybe you could make a similar case for like Michigan. People have been ripping Jim Harbaugh, and it's like, well, what do you want him to do? It's not like Michigan is some team that constantly is winning national championships. They're a good team, they're a big brand, but Jim Harbaugh kind of, and if you look at it, he's had success. So,
well, yeah, and that's the other thing. And the thing with Michigan is Michigan can get players in that Notre Dame can't get in, so they have it a little bit easier. And also, they're in a conference. If Notre Dame was in a conference, they would have never made the playoff.
Right.
And the thing is, like, the 12-team playoff, for us, it's a good thing. But for a lot of these coaches, it's not good. Because now Jim Harbaugh and Brian Kelly and whoever the coaches at Notre Dame are going to be expected to be in the top 12 every year.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make the playoff every single year. And I just don't think that's legit. I don't think like every school out there, take out the best coach they've ever had, right? Notre Dame is not a top 10 program. With Brian Kelly, they're a top 10 program. Right? But they're not. Otherwise, they're not. They're probably not a top 25 program. So I think, unless Marcus Freeman ends up being really good, I think that Notre Dame is going to go back to let's get bowl eligible. We'll be playing on December 28th. And that's what it'll be. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but I just think the expectations are just completely out of whack, and it's because Brian Kelly is so good. So
yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on that, but that's just where I'm at with it. Just from watching the games, man, I'll tell you what, Texas A&M has gotten a lot of publicity, a lot of notoriety. I think they're really overrated. They beat Miami like 17-9, and it was an ugly game. I think Texas A&M's defense is really good. They can't figure anything out on offense. And, I think it's a bit of a misnomer. Like they had the number 1 recruiting class, so everybody expects them to win every game. Well, just because you had the number 1 recruiting class just recently doesn't mean all those guys aren't going to play. They're all a bunch of freshmen. Like, did you expect that? So I think it's a bit ridiculous. But they did go to the other quarterback. They went to Max Johnson instead of Haynes King, and I thought he played smart. But I think the way Texas A&M looks now, Alabama's going to beat them by 20. Like, this is not, they've got a long way to go from what I saw. I thought the University of Miami looked pretty good though. Especially up front, like their offensive and defensive lines, like they got some guys. They need to, do a better job. The quarterback and the receivers seem off for some reason. They just couldn't make a play when it mattered.
Yeah.
But I like where they're at. So, but one of the games I did kind of enjoy was LSU playing Mississippi State. So, Brian Kelly, Brian, speaking of guys who have players, like LSU is, as always, is really talented. They just kind of, get in their own way a little bit. They played better than they did against Florida State, but they make so many mistakes. I mean, I think Brian Kelly was turning purple on the sideline. Maybe it was the LSU hat. I couldn't tell, but he was about to throw something onto the field. And, I'm watching it going, the quarterback is missing guys. Like, unless the guy was 10 right in front of him, wide open, he could not make the throw. And then all of a sudden in the second half, he starts just nailing guys on throwing dimes down the field. It's like, what is happening? So, everybody needs to calm down on Brian Kelly. He's doing a really good job. They have a whole bunch of really good players. If they can figure out the quarterback thing a little bit better, they'll be fine. They're fine. They managed to win that game. They struggled, but they managed to win the game. LSU's in really good shape. Notre Dame would kill to have some of LSU's players. So, they're a bit of a mess, but they'll figure it out. The other thing is, Nebraska, I thought it was funny. Like, everyone was talking them up on College Game Day saying, oh, their coach, they got rid of their coach. They're going to rally around. They're going to really be good today. They got beat 49-14 by Oklahoma. I think Notre Dame is somewhere in this boat, but Nebraska, it's done. It's done. No great coach wants to go to Nebraska, number one, and no players want to go to Nebraska. Like, Nebraska doesn't have the tradition of Nebraska is older than me now. So nobody remembers what the tradition, especially kids being recruited. They don't know the tradition of Nebraska, nor do they care, nor do they want to go to Lincoln, Nebraska. So I think, I know and listen, all these college football analysts, they're all older than me, and they all remember what Nebraska used to be, and they all want to tell us, no, they can get back there. They can't. It's over. It's done. Can they win 7 or 8 games and go to – sure, absolutely. Beat the bottom of the Big Ten. Sure, absolutely they can. I'm not saying Scott Frost was doing the best job, but like, it's done. It's over with. Like, Nebraska is never going to be a top flight program anymore. So also Oregon played BYU. I thought that was I was really excited to see that game because I think both teams are pretty evenly matched, but Oregon put a whooping on them. I think everybody got sidetracked. Georgia beat the hell out of Oregon the first week. Well, Georgia's going to do that to a lot of people, as you saw what they did to South Carolina. And I think Oregon is a good team. I think USC is a good team. I think Utah is a good team. Any one of them could win the Pac-12, and I think would be a good representative. So I think that, it's funny, like, as soon as USC and UCLA are moving to the Big Ten, everybody wants to go, well, now the Pac-12 sucks. It's like, nah, that's not true. That's not true. You try to go to Oregon and win. Good luck.
Right.
I was talking about quarterback prospects last week, and Anthony Richardson from Florida, I think he had 100 yards and 3 interceptions, and they barely beat South Florida by 3.
Yeah.
That was a rough game.
Well, one of the problems I'm noticing, especially with the draft, is like, some of these quarterbacks, they're coming in, they don't play that much. I mean, like Trey Lance hardly played. Even Tua played. He played what, a full season?
I think he had 22 starts or 20 something.
Yeah, I mean, it's harder to get a 4-year starter because guys get so good that they know they're going to get drafted. But you'd like to see some of these guys play more because it's just hard to know, coming into the
especially now with all the transferring going on and all the quarterbacks transferring constantly.
Yeah.
You only play if you get let's say you get you come in, you get redshirted, right, the first year, and then the second year if you're stuck behind somebody and you have to transfer, you might only get to play 1 year or maybe 1 year plus a little bit. So it's actually it's become really difficult, which is why it's so weird. You watch Penn State, because of the COVID year, they gave everybody an extra year of eligibility. So Sean Clifford is in his 6th year playing quarterback for Penn State.
Okay.
So it's you have this guy, you have these teams that have 23, 24-year-olds on their team. And of course, BYU is like that anyway because they all do that 2-year mission or whatever it is because the Mormon thing. So you have kids that are adults on some of these teams, and it's really it's kind of interesting.
Well, that's what's funny. It's I guess there's a fine line between I want the guy to have more starts in college, but if he starts all 4 years, I start to wonder how good can this guy really be because he should have been drafted by now. It's
Yeah, it's difficult, and you need games. In basketball, you play 30 games. You get a certain amount of and so football is just such a small sample size sport, and it's so hard to be good at playing quarterback. It takes so much, repetition and to see all of the different stuff. So anyway, the Rams finally finished off the Falcons. But yeah, and then my other take was, could Michigan and USC play somebody? Michigan's played Colorado State, Hawaii, and who did they play yesterday? UConn. I'm tired of the cupcake games. We're halfway through September. Could we get past this, please?
Yeah, well, and I thought this was interesting. I had turned on Penn State Auburn yesterday, and they had what's his name? Gary
Danielson.
Gary Danielson. Yeah, and he was talking about, he's because the game was at Auburn, so it was Penn State going to Auburn, and he said, this is college football needs more of this. And I think he was just speaking to having, these out of conference games that are, with big programs, And he's saying, I think we need more of this, and I think with the playoff, he didn't say, I think he meant the playoff expanding with that on the horizon. I think we're going to get more of these. That's what we want, guys. We want big brands playing each other. Because stuff we haven't really seen. It's Penn State playing Auburn. Oh, that's interesting. I've never seen that before. Or you don't see that much. So it's.
Yeah, they played last year at Penn State, so they did a home and home. I totally agree. I mean, look what happened. Alabama finally plays an out of conference road game,
and that was fun.
And it was awesome.
Yeah.
So, it's really not, it's not that hard. I don't understand why we can't do a better job with this. And, I was listening to, Tim Brando was on one of the shows I listened to, he used to broadcast for CBS. I forget what network he works for now. And he was basically saying look, the Big 12 is going to be fine. They're going to, they're going to stay together. The Big 12's getting Cincinnati and BYU next year. Right. So this idea that we're going to have 2 big conferences and that's going to be it is nonsense. They'll be fine, especially now that we have a 12-team playoff. They have a clear avenue to get into the playoff. So I think it's as usual. Everybody goes crazy about the conference realignment, and it's going to be fine. It's going to be absolutely fine. Hopefully, we'll get more of these games, and with 12 teams in the playoff, the conferences won't matter as much. It'll matter more how good you are and what your schedule is,
right?
More than it used to. So that's what I'm looking forward to. But we have, we got hopefully have more good games coming up. But September in college football is tough because there's all these cupcake games and nonsense. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, that's all I had.
First and goal Bengals. They're down 17-9. So Burrow is somehow bringing him back after just getting his ass kicked all day.
Yep. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Tua for MVP. No.
That's right. Tua for president.
Yeah.
Chancellor, prime minister, whatever it is.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I think the Cowboys are they're going to put out an ad. They're going to try to get Uncle Rico to play quarterback.
Touchdown, Bengals.